in our branding. And, well, dude, we could have, but we're not doing it.
It would be so good.
No, we're gonna leave you guys wanting more by doing Controversial February next year. We already have some ideas. Speaking of, the next time that we do a debate, it will be way more formal than it was last week, because it wasn't. And just for you guys' sake, it wasn't as good as it could have been, because only questions were asked to me and none to Isaac. And so you didn't get as much of a well fleshed out view of both, of Christian nonviolence and pro self-defense. Leading into this week, something I want to mention as well, something that surprised me was how much, controversy, I guess, the position that I took had, and no controversy basically for the position that Isaac had. And the reason why I say this is surprising is, let me ask, how many Bible verses did Isaac use? None. How many Bible verses did I use? A lot. And so that should tell us something about the way that culture influences us, right? Because the thing is that what we have is, we have the Bible and we have culture, and one was very much accepted and listened to, and the other one became controversial for us. And so I say that leading into this of dating. Dating is a very cultural thing. It's not in the Bible. So this is what's fun about this conversation, is we have to figure out what to do as Christians with dating, regardless of the fact that it's not a practice in the New Testament or the Old Testament. So, you guys ready to talk about Christian dating? Mm-hmm. And let's just keep this in mind. It's like, let's have the Bible be our final word, rather than culture, Christian culture. Let's just think about what the Bible has to say. But before we do that, views on dating. Here's kind of a spectrum of views of dating. Some people view dating as if marriage is never a goal in the relationship. So you date and you're like, yep, marriage is never a goal in this. Kind of in the middle is marriage might result from this relationship. And then on this end is marriage is the goal of dating. So let's look at the first one, which is more of our secular culture, which is this marriage is never a goal in this relationship. This is kind of the way our culture talks, right? Kind of. It's like, yeah, marriage isn't really the aim of this. Yes? You guys can say yes when I ask a question. Okay, all right. So the majority of Americans still view marriage favorably, but it's really been on the decline since the 1970s. This is what it looks like. It used to be per 1,000 unmarried women, so you get a group of women that are unmarried, 1,000 of them, and it was 76.5 per year all the way back in 1970. It's gone up a little bit. This is a little bit older data, but in 2020 it hit 28. So like significantly less than half. It's gone up to, I think, like 30, 31 last year. So why are people getting married, guys? How has it dropped this much?
COVID.
Huh?
COVID.
Oh, I thought you said goated, and I was like, okay, interesting thoughts. COVID, yeah, maybe, yeah. What other reasons might you see in our culture? Yeah.
Well, I think in our culture right now, we really value independent women, and
Yeah.
getting married is like you're being dependent on a male.
Yeah. Who needs a man? You can just get a Kit Kat, you know? It's like chocolate is just as good, yeah. People find pleasure outside of marriage. Yep, absolutely. What else? Adam?
The rise of the LGBTQ community, and a lot of them are not allowed to get married.
Yep. So there's that. Yeah. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Some of that will come back into this conversation as well. What else? Yeah.
People are thinking about what will make them happy right now
Instead of long term. Yeah. Anything else we want to say? Yeah.
We're losing our dating.
Amen, brother. Amen. I can see it. Kyle, yeah.
I mean, just the general shift away from the entire dating, shift in like the dating culture.
Yes, dating culture is very different than the way it used to be. Yeah. People don't go to bars anymore to meet people that they want to be with for the rest of their lives.
Men just go to Target to find all the women there.
That's true. Or Starbucks. Am I right, ladies? So there are lots of reasons for this of why marriage is not happening. One of the reasons, too, that we haven't mentioned is that the institutions that we have, like there are certain mile markers that are being pushed back when it comes to marriage. People don't feel ready to get married like they used to. Things are more expensive. So like before, like, you know, when your parents were young, it was a long time ago, there was kind of like you go to college, right? You get a career, you get married, you get a house together, then you start having kids, right? That's kind of the way you do it. And like you get a college degree now, and then do you get a career?
No.
And they're like, well, maybe you get a career. It's like, but that's more of a question mark. And then maybe you are interested in someone, maybe you're dating, but are you able to get a house? Like, probably not. So there are things that are like the mile markers of like, now you're ready, these milestones, these rites of passage that culturally used to mean that you're getting closer to marriage and that you're able to get married at this point. Those are getting pushed back. So it's harder then to get married. Another thing is that, you start to get set in your ways as you approach like late 20s, And so the longer it takes for you to get married, the harder it is to find someone who's okay with you the way that you are because you're not changing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's easier if you get married younger, you're still growing together, and then you can kind of figure out each other and who you are within this relationship. And so it's just easier. Social media and smartphone use. With social media, smartphone use, social anxiety has risen a ton. It's harder for people to talk to each other because they're so used to communicating via text or social media. So then you're kind of just afraid of the opposite sex to talk to them, right? Can I get an amen? From the girls too? Okay, I was surprised. I was thinking the guys were like, yeah. Wow, surprise! I'm learning things today. Another thing is Ronald Reagan has a hand in this. So Ronald Reagan in 1969, he's the governor of California, and he passed the a no-fault divorce law in California. Ronald Reagan, one of the greatest presidents of all time, and that set a precedent for the rest of the country to have no-fault divorce laws. What do you think happened to the divorce rate after that? It skyrocketed. And so then you have what's called latchkey kids. None of you know what that means. But it was like Gen X kind of growing up, like their parents were divorced and separated, and so, there would be, the kids are gone, or the parents are gone, they're working, and so they would have a key to their apartment that their parents lived in, or one parental unit lived in, and they just let themselves in after school and all that kind of stuff. And so when you are a child of divorce, typically, what is typical is there are certain fears around getting married, just because you've seen it end poorly in the past. And so then there's that thought that could happen to you as well. And so then, marriage doesn't seem to be all that exciting to get into. Another thing is, and you guys mentioned this, is that marriage used to be in the context, that's the context in which you would find sexual intimacy. But then since the sexual revolution of the 60s, that kind of opened up, you can have sexual intimacy and pleasure with whoever you want to with zero commitment, right? So what's the point of getting married? Because basically you can have all the benefits of being married without being married. So just don't get married. Right? Does this make sense? You don't have to agree with it, but does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of our secular culture. You want to talk about our Christian culture now? Awesome, because that's what's next in the slide, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So this is kind of our Christian culture, and what we talk about dating and marriage. It's built into human beings that we should desire companionship and sexual intimacy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and just a reminder, there's no phones during large group message. Though companionship can be found outside of marriage, right? Through friendship, right? You can find companionship. You have friends, right? Okay, so that's companionship. That can be found outside of marriage, but sexual intimacy cannot be found outside of marriage from the Christian perspective. Should you find that outside of marriage? Should you find sexual intimacy outside of marriage?
No.
No. Awesome. Thank you. Your parents are so proud of you. If you want to enjoy the benefits of marriage, you need to be married. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to be married, you need to date. Or if you're really Christian, you court somebody. There's no difference. There's no difference. Everyone says that there's a difference and you're doing it the right way if you're courting. There's no difference. Okay. Last thing, you need to be ready to be married before you can date. There's no need to be playing with another person's feelings in life if you're not ready to get married, right?
Yeah, you need
Okay.
to set your cup down because you keep spilling water.
I get animated when I'm talking, okay? And it's water. It's not going to stain. At any rate, so does this kind of capture our Christian culture when it comes to marriage and dating? Okay. Kind of good. Okay. So, continued, then, how do you date becomes the question. And this has been a topic of conversation ever since the 80s and the 90s and the AIDS scare and all that. We talked about that a few weeks ago with LGBTQ plus in the Bible. Because sexual intimacy is only for marriage, watch with what you do with the person that you're dating. Don't cross any lines and have sexual boundaries, right?
Yes.
Okay. Boys, this is what Christian culture says to you. You will struggle with lust, but you need to have commitment to this girl if you're going to have the reward of intimacy with this girl someday through marriage. Right? Does this reflect Christian culture?
Yeah.
Okay. Girls, boys will struggle with lust. Do all that you can to keep them from sinning with their eyes or with their bodies. So, this is, and we've seen this before, right? For those of you who are around for the LGBTQ plus talk, this is Christian dating in a nutshell. Christian dating couple, they have purity boundaries and virginity, right? Keep the boys from doing things. And then you get the reward of a great marriage at the end if you do this right. Right? Okay, so crazy. We've talked about this already, so you know what I think about this. So let's then, now that we've seen what Christian culture talks about and that viewpoint, and we've talked about secular culture, let's critique them, shall we? Okay, we'll critique both because, we don't show favoritism. Secular culture. We just know that this isn't true, that you can enjoy all the benefits of marriage without being married. That's not real, right? Like, let's name some benefits of being married that you can't have without being married.
Tax benefits.
This man is thinking very practically. And he's so right. You can. What other benefits of marriage can you not enjoy without being married? Unity. That's true. You are so right. You can't have a wedding. Josh.
Privacy,
What was it?
like your privacy,
Oh.
just shared with the other half.
Yeah, okay. All right, what else? Because this is a big commitment to get married to somebody, right? So, why be committed to somebody? What benefits are there?
Seeing your best friend 24/7.
Sure.
Ish.
It's an interesting conversation.
That was awesome.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, the whole best friend thing, this is a side. I don't know. I don't know if I'm married to my best friend or not. Like, I'm married to my wife, and she's awesome. She's better than a best friend. Like, I think they're different things.
Yeah.
Like, if I were married to my best friend, I wouldn't work here. Like, because I would be gay at that point. So, I'd find a different church. So, one of the things that you can't enjoy the benefit of outside of being married is commitment. Like, the commitment is, yes, it's the responsibility, but it's also part of the blessing. It's like you will never know the blessing of being committed to someone and them committed to you 100%. Right?
Yeah.
So it might look kind of scary to get committed to somebody like that, but it's also, that's a part of the blessing. With every blessing comes responsibility. If all you want in a relationship is the blessing of sexual intimacy or companionship without the responsibility of commitment and bearing their burdens, you'll never know those blessings of what it is to have someone else bear your burdens, what it's like to be fully vulnerable with somebody else that way. You won't have that. So I don't think our secular culture saying that marriage is never really on the horizon when it comes to this dating relationship is right. But let's also look at our Christian culture and critique that, right? But because that one sounds better than the secular culture, right? To us.
It's definitely more hopeful.
Yeah, it's more hopeful. So because there are some commands that are given to men and women, right? So women are responsible for their own actions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone. Are women responsible for the actions of men?
No.
No. Are women the gatekeepers of men's purity? You need to know this. Ladies, you are not the gatekeeper of, if you end up dating, you are not the gatekeeper of your boyfriend's purity.
What's that mean?
Of like, I have to make sure that I'm not tempting him towards sin, okay? Like, in Christian culture, there's this idea that it's like women, because boys will struggle with lust, you have to make sure that he toes the line and doesn't cross boundaries. Okay, for one, that does not sound like a great relationship. Because as soon as, like, you can like this boy before, but under the Christian culture system, it makes you immediately, as soon as you start dating, his babysitter. Because all of a sudden, you have to be the one who's responsible and make sure that he doesn't cross any boundaries. You are not the gatekeeper of a man's boundaries. 100% not. That is not your responsibility. Okay? And if he does not respect the boundaries that you have set up, leave him. Get rid of him. He doesn't deserve you, okay? Can I get an agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is the last time I gave this talk, I didn't have so many children. And it's changed my tone. Okay, women can struggle with lust.
Yeah.
Okay? What's crazy about the Christian culture message is boys will struggle with lust. Girls, you don't really do that. It's like, did Jesus, was he like, no, there's guys only struggle with certain sins and women only struggle with certain sins. Did he ever make that? No. And something that happens because of Christian culture is that we say boys will struggle with lust. Boys will struggle with lust. That's the constant refrain when it comes to dating and sexual ethics and all that kind of stuff. And so then a woman struggles with lust. What do you think that's going to do to your head as a woman? Boys struggle with lust, and now you struggle with lust.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the reasons why 80% of the LGBTQ plus community comes from the church. Is the church has messaging around gender and sexual ethics that creates problems for people. Women struggle with lust too. There you go. You don't have to be like, it's just boys. Okay. Just This is good critique. This is helpful for the girls. Okay, guys, your turn. Not all men struggle with lust.
Yay.
This is great. I was talking to a guy once, a little younger than me, and we were talking about this topic. And I asked him, like, have you ever struggled with pornography? And he said no. It's like, that's so cool. Like, we like, this is possible. And so one of the things in Christian culture, when we keep saying all men struggle with lust, then what happens if you're a guy and you don't struggle with that? What does that do to your head, guys?
Messes it up. Probably, but
Isn't it like I should struggle with lust? Like, are you being encouraged? Kind of like to be a man is to struggle with lust, right? So then, it encourages this. Okay, so that's the lust part. When it comes to dating relationships, men are just as responsible for keeping boundaries and purity as women are. So, guys, know this. If you have trusted in Jesus, He is your King. He's your Savior. He has freed you from all sin. You do not have to struggle with lust. That does not have to be a part of your life. And then on top of that, if you're going to date someone, then you don't have to be like, I really want, the whole reason I'm dating her is just to make out. Like, that does not have to be what you want to do all the time. You can just be friends and then date and get to know this person. And then another thing is that with this whole idea of you should be ready to be committed and get married to this person, even before you are. Not all men are ready for that kind of commitment when they start dating, and that's okay. Very often in our Christian culture, it's like, are you willing to take up the commitment? And it's like, maybe he's not, and that's all right. Let's just cool the jets a little bit. This is not that serious of a thing. This is how your commitment level should go as a Christian, as anyone who's going to date, I think. Okay, so you've met. So this is like the gradient of commitment. Blue is very committed. Okay, and then you get not as much. So you've met this person. Are you all that committed to them?
no.
You just met them. It's fine. You start dating. Are you more committed to them? Yeah, a little bit more. Obviously, you've chosen one person to date, and then you get over to engaged. Are you a little bit more committed at that point? Right, you're a little bit more committed, and then you have wedding planning, and the wedding planning deepens commitment because now you've put time, money, and effort into making sure that this day happens. So that really solidifies things, and then you get married, and then you're off the scale commitment. That's why it ends right there. Okay, that's what you should do, I think, when it comes to dating and commitment. This is what our Christian culture does. And this is what even our secular culture does. Do you see this level of commitment? You've met them, and because we keep saying that you have to be ready to get married in order to date this person, what does dating mean?
Maximum commitment.
You're ready to marry him. Dating becomes engagement. You see that? Don't do this. This is stupid. This is so dumb. I cannot tell you how dumb this is. It's very dumb. Okay, it's reasons why we have commandments like 9 and 10 in our 10 Commandments of Youth group, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Don't do this. Don't do this. This is just going to cause so much hurt if you do this. Because odds are you're not going to marry him. But you've set a commitment level into the relationship that was unhealthy for it. Both of you have, probably. Or one of you has. Even if just one, it's not going to end well. And then it's going to be like you were engaged to someone, and then they broke off the engagement. That's what it's going to feel like when you break up. Okay, principles of dating. So we've critiqued all of it. Now we're going to get to, I think, what are some healthy principles for dating. You ready? This is going to be helpful, hopefully. I asked Christine Nielsen last time we did this talk. She's a mom of 4, and 3 of the 4 are married. What advice do you have? She's got a lot of wisdom, Christine. If you know Christine, you know she's got a lot of wisdom. Yeah, Isaac's mom. And this is what she said. Okay. Which is lovely. She's amazing. So here's the thing. This whole topic, as I said at the beginning, it's not in the Bible. Okay? So this is a great statement. I've got nothing. All we can do when it comes to this topic of dating is get principles from the Bible, wisdom from the Bible, and apply it to our lives in dating, but it doesn't tell us how to do dating. Like what boundaries to have, what boundaries not to have. It doesn't have any of that. Okay, so going forward, this is all just me trying to apply the wisdom of Scripture to your dating relationships, and you don't even have to agree with me, okay? Because this is all just like, I don't know, let's do our best, right? Okay, so because it's a relatively new thing in human history, because the Bible doesn't talk about it, this is just all observation and opinion. Okay, number 1, love God. Can we agree on that? Okay, greatest commandment, love God. So, if your goal in dating is to love God, then that's going to keep you obedient to God when it comes to your relationship. And that's not just when it comes to physical, interactions, sexual intimacy, all that kind of stuff. It's just you're going to try to be obedient to God's commands in the whole of it, right? You're going to try to love God in this relationship. So, principle number 1, if you're going to date, love God in that dating relationship. How can you love God more through this dating relationship? Make sense? Okay. Because very often what will happen is that, someone will want you, because you're in a dating relationship, to do things that you don't want to do, your conscience doesn't allow you to do. And so if you love God first, and you know who you are in relationship to God, you don't have to worry about this person and what they want you to do. Make sense? Okay. Principle 2, love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Love God, love each other, right? Because what's the second greatest commandment? Love your neighbor as yourself, yeah. So this is what I love, is this will mean that as you seek to love your neighbor, who is this person that you're dating, it will mean that the dating relationship is a learning experience no matter what happens. Okay? Because I'll tell you my experience in dating. When Jess and I started dating, I realized how unaware I was of other people and how my words and actions affected them until I started dating. Then I realized how much my words and my actions affected someone else. And so this, especially, I don't know, I can only speak for the guys. It seems like for many men, they need to be in a relationship at some point in their life because they need to realize how dumb they are and the way that they treat other people. And so then it's like, oh wow, my girlfriend's upset. I wonder why. It's like, because you were an idiot. You completely said the wrong thing. You completely did the wrong thing. And it's not like that. I don't know if that's even sin. It's just you're dumb, So when you are in a dating relationship, it becomes a learning experience so long as you have love your neighbor as yourself as the goal. Because it might become obvious that loving your neighbor as yourself means that you shouldn't be in a relationship anymore, right? As you get to know them. It's like, oh, okay, then let's not date anymore. Principle 3. Know that you are loved by God. Very often, we don't get this. So then we look for someone else to fulfill this need of love that we have. So if you know that if you love God and you know that you're loved by Him, that frees you up from the constant need to be in a relationship. Okay? Here's another one. Don't judge yourself by standards that aren't in the Bible. Paul writes and says, don't go beyond what is written. Let me ask you, who's better? The guy who's kissed 10 girls before he's 20 or the guy who waited until marriage to kiss? Who's better?
Depends on what you're qualifying as better.
So who's better? Okay, I'll ask you another one. The girl who's dated a lot of guys, I'm not even going to put a number on it, a lot of guys or girl who only dated one guy and married him? Who's better? Does the Bible speak to either of these? Does the Bible say one is better than the other? Don't judge people by standards that aren't in the Bible. Don't judge yourself by standards that aren't in the Bible. Kissing people is a matter of conscience, I think. And it's also a matter of cultural significance. You know that there are commands in the Bible that we ignore about kissing? So there are commands in the New Testament to the letters, from the letters of Paul to the churches, to greet one another with a holy kiss. Did we do that this morning? No. Why didn't we do it?
Because our culture is
It's not culturally appropriate. Yeah, I would get fired. Cultural significance of what it means to kiss someone has shifted since the New Testament era. Okay, so kissing is a matter of conscience. I am going to tell you, I'm not one of those people that is going to say, you should really wait for your first kiss until your wedding day. I'm not going to tell you that. Because it's a matter of conscience. It's not a matter of obedience to the Word of God. The Word of God does not say don't kiss anybody before you get married. It's a man-made tradition and rule. That's Phariseeism, right? The Pharisees did this all the time. Just had traditions that people had to follow, and when they didn't follow them to their standard, they judged them.
Yep.
So if you want to kiss your boyfriend, I don't know. Dating lots of people was seen as normal 100 years ago. Like if a girl went out with a guy on Saturday and went out with a different guy on the next Saturday, no one was like, oh my gosh, did you see her? It's a different guy every week. They didn't care. They were like, oh, well, that last guy didn't work out. He must have been a loser. It's completely different. Why would you limit your choices to just one person for a year? That was the thought. It's you want the best man out there. And so if he doesn't grab your attention day one, you're not going steady. You're going to just dump him, go on to the next one. And no one was like, oh my gosh, he's such a sinner. Dating lots of people or kissing lots of them can definitely be a sign of a heart issue, right? Maybe that is a problem. Maybe, you dated, 10 girls and you're only 16. Maybe that's a heart problem. Maybe you've kissed 20 guys and you're only 14. Maybe that's a heart problem. Maybe that's a heart problem. But refusing to date or kiss until you're ready for marriage could also be a sign of a heart issue. Maybe that person isn't trusting God's timing. So don't judge yourself or other people off of standards that aren't in the Bible. I would say don't judge people at all, but we have to say it particularly like this. This also brings me to there's a commandment that we have in our 10 Commandments of Youth Group. You'll notice that there are only 8 of them when we read them together. There's a couple when it comes to dating. One is if you are dating, don't show PDA. And that's because it's just gross. And nobody enjoys it but you. Everybody else is like, this is uncomfortable. Okay, but the other one is no serial dating. And what we mean by that is don't go around dating lots of people in the youth group. And the reason why is not because dating lots of people is bad, right? Because we've just established this. Yes? Dating lots of people is not bad. The problem is our culture about this. Because when we go back to this commitment level thing that we talked about, this is the way that most people see commitment when it comes to dating. And that's just, it's going to take a long time, I think, for our culture to change within our youth group about this. And so because this is true, if you date one person in the youth group and that level of commitment is there, and then you break up, which is pretty likely, then there's all of this pain on both sides. And then if you date someone else, it increases that pain. And it increases the odds of just disunity. And there are tons of commandments in the New Testament about make sure that we maintain unity. So I want you guys to know that the reason why we have that command in our youth group is not because dating lots of people is bad. The reason why we have it is because there are hurt feelings when people break up. And we want to maintain unity within our group. Does that make sense? Okay. So a few more principles, and then hopefully, I don't know how much time we have. We might have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. Okay. Some advice. This is not in the Bible. This is just me talking to you, okay? Not in the Bible. Thank you. Okay. Be constant in your thankfulness to God. I think this might be one of the most important things that I can tell you about dating. Be constant in your thankfulness to God. Very often, people, when you're a teenager, you want to date because there is a feeling, I mean, maybe this is just how I was when I was a teenager. I wasn't thankful for the moment that God had given me of singleness. And we've talked about this a few weeks ago when we talked about LGBTQ+ in the Bible. Being married does not make you a first-class citizen in the kingdom of heaven. Knowing and loving Jesus, having him as your king, that makes you a first-class citizen in the kingdom of heaven. And there are no second-class citizens. So you don't need to get married in order to be happy. You can be thankful for where you're at right now in being single. There are so many benefits to being single, guys. So thank God. Be thankful and be constant in your thankfulness to God. If you are going to date, I would recommend have a list of values for you that are absolutely essential for you to have in a spouse. And I'm not talking about like they have to have blue eyes or they have to be 6'2" or anything like that. I'm saying values. These are about who they are as a person, regardless of what they look like, okay?
Like loyalty.
Like loyalty, yes, something like that. Or what kind of family do you want them to be from? What's their relationship to their parents? Those kinds of things. Value, matters of character. It's also important to know what your likes are, but know that these are your likes and not your needs, okay? So if someone comes along that has all the values that you want and none of the likes, well, you have to make that decision, but I think likes are less important. I would also recommend only dating someone after you've gotten to know them as a friend. Because most of the time, when you're friends with someone, they are not trying to impress you. They're just a dork, they're just stupid, they're just the way that silly people, right? This is the way we are. And what can happen is if you start a relationship where you're dating them to start, you might be both trying to put on a face and be really impressive. I'd say just be friends first, and then you're like, am I willing to live with that level of silliness? And it's like, yeah, probably, Beware, a relationship should not isolate you from your friends and family. Now, that isn't to say that you should not hang out with the person that you're dating, but it is to say if they're like removing you from friends and family, that's a red flag. You might want to consider not being with them, to put it nicely. Some advice for the girls. Again, not in the Bible. Ladies, know your worth. Okay? If he does not know your worth, dump him. Get rid of him. Doesn't deserve you. Okay?
But don't go like overboard. Like we're not princesses or goddesses, okay?
Okay. So accept imperfections. Thank you. No one is going to be perfect but Jesus. Okay? And don't use that stupid line of I'm dating Jesus right now. It's dumb. Don't do it. Okay? But very often I will talk to guys and they're like, I don't get like why no one wants to date me. And it's like, well, there are some reasons, but sometimes it is because of unrealistic expectations. It's like, knowing your worth does not mean be narcissistic, okay? That's not the same thing. Know your worth, they need to treat you right, and at the same time be willing to accept imperfections, because let me tell you, ladies, they're going to be accepting your imperfections too, because you have them. Pursue God's will for your life, not a husband. If you're pursuing God's will for your life, You're going to be set on a trajectory. You will have a mission of what you believe God is calling you to do, and what will happen, maybe, because you're not guaranteed marriage, what might happen is that as you're pursuing God's will for your life, someone will come alongside you who has the same goal for their life, because God's called them to that. And so then you'll be hanging out because you're just around the same spheres and the same stuff. You'll get to know each other, and it's like, oh, we both have the same heart for what God wants to do in this area of life. We might as well get married. That happens. Jess and I, we were involved in the prayer ministry here at church. We never talked to each other beforehand saying, hey, you want to be involved in the prayer ministry? And then we were involved in serving in youth ministry. Again, neither of us said, hey, you want to do this? We just found ourselves in the same places. So we both valued prayer and youth. And so, we said, might as well get married. And the story's way more complicated than that. She rejected me. But guys, you'll have to hear it at a different time. Some advice to the guys, okay? Take responsibility and be a blessing to others. Okay? This is what I can recommend for you as a man. Take responsibility, be a blessing to others. Figure out what you believe and believe it with conviction. Ladies do not want someone who's just wishy-washy, like, I don't know what I believe and I don't really care. Boring, stupid, she's moving on. Voluntarily do hard things. That is, I think, as a man, that is one of the best ways that you can grow into the kind of man that you want to be and will be more attractive to a woman. Voluntarily do hard things, which connects to take responsibility and be a blessing to others. The next thing, don't take yourself too seriously. It is a sign of maturity to not take yourself too seriously. It is a sign of immaturity to take yourself too seriously. And this is, I think, one of the most important things. Care more about character than you do beauty. I think I've talked to guys, they're like, there's just not a whole lot of girls around church. And it's like, is she not pretty enough for you? Because her character is stellar. So is she not pretty enough? In Proverbs 31, at the end of that chapter, it says, charm is deceitful and beauty is fading, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. Guys, if you are caring more about beauty than you do character, you're going to get divorced. Because eventually, she is not going to be good looking. If you're 90 and you're married for 70 years, do you think that 90-year-old guy suddenly has become attracted to 90-year-old women? I don't think so. Because he's 90, not dead. If he sees a 25-year-old supermodel, do you think he's going to be more attracted to the 25-year-old supermodel versus his 90-year-old wife, physically? I would think so. But is he going to leave his wife of 70 years? I would hope not. And I would hope in a Christian marriage that he cares more about her character. That he is more attracted to who she is as a person than what is physical. So guys, take responsibility and be a blessing to others. Figure out what you believe and believe it with conviction. Voluntarily do hard things. Don't take yourself too seriously and care more about character than you do beauty. Beauty can have a hand in it, but I totally believe that you can be married to someone that you are not physically attracted to, but you are attracted to their character, and it is a good marriage. Okay. Since I'm hearing the last, any questions? Isaiah? Never mind?
Yeah.
Oh, you got me all excited about it. Huh?
It's not important nonetheless.
Okay, all right. Any questions about dating or marriage? This is the controversial February epilogue, so this is the last chance. Has dating been this well explained that there are no questions?
It's pretty well explained.
Yeah? Nothing? Isaiah?
Since no one else has a question,
Thanks.
can I ask
Can what?
mine? Since no one else has a question, can I ask mine?
You said it had nothing to do with you. Sure.
Well, I mean, it does.
Okay.
So did she reject you when you
Oh, not during. No. When I asked her out. So I was very sure that she liked me. Guys, we're not all that perceptive, apparently. But there was some connection, we felt. And I was driving her home one night, and I was so sure. I'd been praying about it, and we're driving home, and she starts talking about this guy from college. And that. So what you just did with the without thinking came out of my mouth. And I said, oh gosh. And she goes, what? And I'm like, nothing. Because I'm thinking maybe this is like answer to prayer of like, maybe this is it. She doesn't like you, man, you know? And so I'm like really determined for her to just keep talking about this other guy that's not me. And she's like, no, I want to hear it. And I'm like, okay, do you have time? Like, I'm driving her home. What is she going to say? And so, it was awful. It is the most, like, you guys, when you've asked a girl out before, if you ever have done that, I don't know. I don't want to assume too much. But, like, your tongue gets dry and you're all sweaty. And then, like, this is the worst I've ever had it. Is like, I could feel my heartbeat like through the top of, like all the way through my skull. It was the worst. And so I go through the whole thing, and I'm such an idiot. Because I get to the end of it, and I'm like, so, yeah, I think you're basically perfect for me. And so, do you want to date? And her response was, I'm going to have to say no right now. And I was like, totally makes sense. Out of my league, totally understand, dropped her off. And I was all happy because, like, load off of me. But she was, like, crying because we were really good friends. And, it was an awkward, like, week and a half. But then we were back to being friends. It was great. And then her cousin was like, what would it hurt if you went on one date with them? And then she's like, what would it hurt? And so then she came back, and she was like, you remember how I said no before? Which is a crazy thing to say to a guy that you rejected, ladies. Do you remember? I sure do. And I said I did, and then she said it wasn't an absolute no. And then I was like, okay, don't show too much emotion right now. Because I was like, on the inside, I was just like, spiking the football in the end zone. I was like, hitting people. On the outside, I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, I think we should keep, continuing as friends and see how this goes. And then 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. So, listen. I'm not saying do what I did. I'm just saying it happened.
Did you date at all before?
Yes, we dated.
6 months?
6 months. But we were friends for a long time before that. I've known Jess since I was 11, I think. Wow. So, yeah, long time. 10 or 11. Anyway, thanks for the question, Isaiah. If you have any other questions about dating and all that, feel free to stick around. Next week, we're going to start a new series called The Core Commandments of Christ. So if you want to know God's will for your life, show up.